Did your parents ever have the talk with you? I'm guessing most of yours didn't. So today, let's talk about sex. Feeling uncomfortable? I can understand. Because in India, we're not huge fans of talking openly about sex. Not even to educate our own children. Most Indian children and adolescents receive sex education in the form of indirect messages from many sources, some of which have undesired negative effects on them. This can be avoided if we implement comprehensive sex education, or CSE, in schools. CSE intends to impart age-appropriate and medically accurate information on a broad set of topics related to sex and sexuality, including human development, closeness, consent, decision-making, disease prevention, abstinence, and contraception. CSE is critical because children and adolescents are highly gullible to sexual exploitation. Global estimates published in the year 2002 by the World Health Organization show that 150 million girls and 73 million boys under the age of 18 had experienced forced sexual intercourse or other forms of sexual violence. In 2007, India's Ministry of Women and Child Development presented the results of a study carried out in 13 states of the country. These were its findings. 21.9% child respondents reported facing extreme forms of sexual abuse, and 50.8% other forms of sexual abuse. Of all the victims studied, 58.3% were boys and 41.7% were girls. 40% of these victims were between 5 to 12 years of age, and 50% of the abusers were familiar people, cousins, uncles, friends, and classmates. The statistics are alarming, but how can we stop such incidents from occurring? Well, the children need to be empowered with the right education. In 2005, the government of India formulated a homegrown program called the Adolescence Education Program, or AEP, in association with UNICEF and the National AIDS Control Organization, or NACO. However, when this program was introduced in schools affiliated to state education boards, it was refuted on the grounds that its explicit content was contrary to Indian culture and morality. As a reaction to similar protests, AEP was banned by 12 state governments, including the larger states of Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, and Gujarat. After the ban, a team was set up to make the content more culturally acceptable. NACO revised it by dropping the illustrations deemed controversial and omitting words such as intercourse, condoms, and masturbate. Sadly, however, in spite of revisions, the curriculum remains banned even today in as many as 5 states for fear of cultural pollution. We Indians keep harping about the purity and greatness of our culture, but culture cannot be followed blindly. Remember that our culture once allowed us to beat the shit out of anyone from a lower caste, even if their shadow fell on us. Such cultural values are not going to save anyone from STDs and unwanted pregnancies. Instead, we need to establish a culture of free communication. We need to talk to the youth and tell them what they must know. Worldwide statistics show that around 240 people contract HIV every hour. India has the 3rd largest number of people living with HIV in the world, 2.1 million at the end of 2013. That is 1 out of every 600 people. These figures indicate that we really need effective and comprehensive sex education to ensure a healthy and safe life, not just for children, but for everyone. Imparting sex education in an appropriate and culturally sensitive manner at school level can help prepare the youth to face the challenges of adulthood, and it should be a national priority. Introducing sex education should not only be important, but mandatory, and we should all work towards it. There are a lot of kids out there who need to know the difference between right and wrong. Don't you want to help them? Then say yes to CSE.
Humans look a bit like each of their parents. This is because they share genetic information with both of them. This mixing comes about because of sexual reproduction, which involves the joining of 2 sex cells, or gametes, in the process called fertilization. You can find out more about fertilization by watching this video. Male and female humans have different reproductive systems. During puberty, the reproductive organs develop to enable the production of offspring. This video covers what happens during puberty in more detail. The testes produce sperm, the male gametes. The testes are kept outside the body in the scrotum. This keeps them cooler and is better to form sperm production. The sperm ducts carry sperm from the testes to the urethra. which is a tube running down the inside of the penis. Here the sperm is mixed with secretion from glands to produce a liquid called semen. Semen helps carry the sperm into the female reproductive system. Here's the female reproductive system. The female gametes, eggs or ova, are released from the ovaries. One is released every month by a process called ovulation. When a baby girl is born, she already has all of the eggs she will ever release inside her ovaries. During puberty, the monthly cycle of an egg maturing and being released starts. This is part of the menstrual cycle. More about this can be found in this video. After ovulation, the egg travels along a tube called the fallopian tube, or oviduct, away from the ovary and towards the uterus, which is also known as the womb. During sexual intercourse, also called copulation, semen is ejaculated from the penis into the woman's vagina and swim up through the cervix and uterus. If a sperm manages to reach the egg in the fallopian tube, then fertilization will occur. The egg only survives for 24 hours after ovulation, but sperm can survive for up to 5 days. This means that there is about 6 days during a cycle in which a sperm and egg can meet and the female can become pregnant. The fertilized egg, called a zygote, will start to divide. On reaching the uterus, this cluster of cells will settle into the lining. If the egg is not fertilized, it will leave the uterus along the lining and menstruation, also known as a period, will occur. Once inside the uterus, in a pregnant woman, the ball of cells will continue to divide and differentiate to form different types of cells. Some will form structures in the embryo and others the placenta. The placenta is an organ and is where the exchange of substance between the mother and embryo occurs. Nutrients and oxygen will pass from the mother's blood into the embryo's blood in the placenta. Blood vessels in the umbilical cord transport these to the embryo. Waste products like carbon dioxide will pass from the embryo to the mother, where they are excreted. At the end of week 8 after fertilization, the embryo is called a fetus. Now it has all the organs including a heart and brain, but it is only still the size of a grape. The fetus continues to develop for the entire pregnancy, also called gestation, so it can survive independently of its mother. This is normally between 38 and 42 weeks. In this video you have learnt about sexual reproduction in humans and how the male and female sexual reproductive organs are used to form and grow a fetus, ready to be born.
Figuring out whether you're ready for sex can be one of the hardest decisions in life. It doesn't matter whether you're someone wanting to have sex for the very first time or someone who's in a new relationship where sex hasn't happened yet. The thought process is pretty much the same. It's a big step and something we should all think pretty carefully about. So, how do you know if you're really ready? You need to think about the risks associated with sex. And to be honest, there's a lot of them. We all know about the health and pregnancy risks of sex, and these are very important. But what about the emotional risks? What do you stand to lose? Will your relationship with that person be changed in a way you're not comfortable with? Sex can make us form a strong, compassionate connection with someone. Are you ready for those kinds of emotions? 2. Are you being pressured? You might think that having sex is the right thing to do, but is it really you who wants sex? Or is it the world around you, pressuring you into doing something you're not ready for? Peer pressure is a very real thing, especially when it comes to sex. Young people are under enormous pressure to lose their virginities, and it kind of becomes a competitive thing. Alternatively, even if you're not a virgin, people might still be pressuring you into having sex with someone new. In both situations, we really need to take a step back and figure out what we want and whether we're actually ready for sex. 3. Do you know where you stand in your relationship? This one is huge. Sex can change a relationship in pretty drastic ways, so it's important to know where you stand. Is it a serious relationship? Or are you two more friends than lovers? you need to make sure that both you and your partner are on the same page. If one person ends up falling in love and the other isn't feeling it, it can lead to serious emotional and psychological distress. And if you two are friends with benefits, ask yourself if you're willing to lose that person as a friend. Because believe us, it can happen. 4. Your genes might actually determine when you lose your virginity. Let's take a break from all the deep, heavy emotional stuff for some science coolness. Yes, we're talking about figuring out when you're ready for sex. But what if it's determined by your genes? That's right. Researchers at Cambridge University found that genetics might determine about 25% of the differences between when people lose their virginity. So what this means is that losing our virginity is something we can't rush, even if we want to. We have to wait for our bodies to be biologically prepared. And for some, hormones don't start firing until later in life, simply because of the genetics we were born with. 5. Think about your past experiences. Sometimes the best way to come to a decision is to look into the past. What do your past experiences tell you? Learning from past relationships is a natural part of developing and maturing as an individual. And the mistakes we make in the past can help us improve our future romances. Did you have sex too early in past relationships? Maybe you felt like you could have had sex sooner in your last relationship. Perhaps you felt like you should have had a discussion with your partner before taking that next step. Obviously, this doesn't really apply to virgins, but if it's still your first time, you can still learn from the past. We can all look back on times where we rushed things too quickly. In conclusion, the most important thing to remember is that you should definitely think long and hard about having sex before going through with it. If you really ponder everything we just talked about, we know you'll do the right thing. No pressure. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to see more content from Psych2Go. Thanks for watching!